me, and today I'm here with my July wrap up. Yes, we have gotten to the end of the month of July, which I don't know how that happened, but here we are anyway. And I read a shitload. Like, I am confidently telling you now that I'm finally out of my reading slump. I read every single day for the month of July, which is what I wanted. Even there were some days that I didn't read more than 20 pages. Like, I just read like a little bit. But I still read every single day of July, which is what I'm happiest with, not necessarily this big stack of books that I read, just that I managed to like motivate myself to actually like read at least like a page every day, which is something that I've been struggling with since the beginning of the year. So that's my biggest accomplishment, but I've also got some great stats to tell you, so let's get into those. First off, my total book count is 14. I read 14 books this month, which is wild, but okay. Like, when I counted them to like make these stats earlier today, I just like I recounted it a couple of times because I didn't believe myself. But that amounted to a total amount of pages of 5,246, which is insane. It's the most I've read this year, which obviously that amounts to 169.22 pages per day, which I'd like to average around like 100 pages a day, so that's fine. And for an average per book is 374.71, and again, what I would like, my target goal is like 350 per book, so that's great. And for the format, which I'm also happy with this division, like if I could get like this every single month, that would be great. 5 other books I read were owned, 3 I got from the library, and then 6 were galleys from that galley. Again, that's amazing. I love that. I feel like throughout the year I haven't been reading a lot of books I've owned or from the library, so I like that that's more evenly divided there. But for star ratings, it's a little bit less like how I want to do. I have 6 3 stars, 5 4 stars, and 3 5 stars, which amounts to an average rating of 3.78, which I'm still happy with because like for my average I would like 3.5 at the least. Still like 6 3 stars is a lot, because 3 stars are like average books like I don't have any positive or negative feelings for usually, so having 6 of those is a lot. But having no 2 or 1 star is fantastic. For the age range, I think that's like the most divided age range I've had since the beginning of the year, because I read 1 middle grade, 4 young adult books, 2 new adult books, and 7 adult books. That's like the first month in history probably that I've read more adult books than YA. So that's also an amazing stat to have. But like my total for the books that YA is still the highest, which I'm happy with because I prefer YA over adult, but like I'm trying to get more into adult books. Then for genres, I have 3 contemporaries, 3 fantasies, 2 mystery thrillers, 5 historical fictions, and 1 sci-fi. I read quite a lot of historical romance, but I put that in the historical fiction category because like for my contemporary romances, I also don't put them in like a separate category for romance, so I felt a little bit weird doing that for historical, so I didn't do it. And yeah, in the middle of the month I did a mid-month wrap-up, so I'm just quickly going over those books right now, but that mid-month wrap-up will be linked down below, and if I remember it will also be like an eye over there, I don't know. So you can watch my more in-depth thoughts on these 6 books, yeah. The first book I read in the month of July is Instructions for Dancing by Nicola Yoon, which I gave 4 to 5 stars. Then I read Soul Land by River Solomon, which is a gallery from that galley, and I give 2 out of 5 stars. Then I read The Cousins by Katharine McManus, which I gave 4 out of 5 stars. Then I read The Last Fallen Star by Casey Kim, which is a galley cut from that galley, and I gave 4 out of 5 stars too. Then I read The Duke and I by Julia Quinn, which I gave 3 out of 5 stars to. And then I read The Viscount Who Loved Me by Julia Quinn, which I gave 5 out of 5 stars to. So yeah, that's all you missed if you haven't seen my wrap up yet. So definitely go do that if you want to know more of my in-depth thoughts on those books. And yeah, we still have quite a lot left for this half of the month, so let's discuss those. The first one I have finished since filming my wrap up is The Bread Between Waves by Charlotte Ann Hamilton, which is a guy from Nagano. I give 2 out of 5 stars to. This book is a historical romance following our main character was a girl whose name I've forgotten because I'm not great with remembering names, but she gets forced to move with her parents to America, and they're on the Titanic. It's the way they're going from the UK to the US. Like, she doesn't want to leave because she has friends. She is in love with this girl. They have a relationship. So she doesn't want to go, but she's forced by her parents to go. So right before they leave, she breaks up with her girlfriend, and like her girlfriend immediately gets like engaged to this guy. So she's heartbroken, doesn't know what to do. But then on the Titanic, she has to share a room with like another girl, and they end up falling for each other. And yeah, this is like, I got accepted for this, and I was so excited about it because it sounded really good. And then I saw it was also pretty short, so I just like read it, even though like I had other ones that came out before this, so I should have prioritized those over this one, but here we are. And honestly, I ended up being a bit disappointed by it. The first half I really enjoyed. I really liked the two, like the main character and the love interest. I liked their dynamics as well, and I know I thought they had like great chemistry, and I liked the romance that was there building, and I also like the setting of the Titanic. I think the author did a great job of like kind of conveying that. But then the second half happens, and we just like throw the entire romance out of the window. Like, that's not the focus of the plot anymore. The Titanic is sinking, like the entire second half is like a survival story basically. And I just felt like that was such a tonal shift from the first half, and I felt like both halves felt like different books, and I didn't really like the second half because I feel like it dragged on a little bit too long, and I feel like it could have been, I don't know, like wrapped up quicker, I guess. Moving on, the next book I read is The Iron Raven by Julia Kagawa, which I gave 4 out of 5 stars. I don't know how to explain this book to you, but this is the first book in a new series taking place in the Iron Fae world, which if you've been on my channel for a while, you know I was absolutely obsessed with it last year. So I was really excited for this book to be released, and I also very excitedly read it. I can give you a synopsis for this because it would definitely spoil the first 2 series, but basically like the Iron Fae series starts off with a girl named Megan who is half Fae, but she doesn't know it, and then one day her little brother gets kidnapped and like exchanged for like a changeling from like the Fae world, and she and her best friend go into the Fae world to find her brother, and like she learns that she's half Fae, and she's like the illegitimate daughter of like a Fae king, and her best friend is actually a Fae who was sent like to the human world to like protect her and like go up with her and make sure she never gets into the Fae world. And that best friend is named Puck, and Puck is the protagonist of this book, which I was so excited for because I absolutely adore Puck. And we only got a little novella in his perspective, I believe. And I was just like, yes, an entire book in his perspective. I want it. I need it. I just loved being in his head. I thought he's such an interesting character to follow because he's lived for so long. And he's also a character we know really well. But like besides that very little novella, we don't know what is going on in his brain. We just see him through other people's eyes. So being in his brain was so interesting, and I loved it. And there's also this aspect going on where like some darker part of himself is like triggered, I guess, and I liked that like inner conflict around that as well. And I liked how eventually at some point it got a little bit annoying, but I liked how it was resolved and what it meant for the development of this character. So like I can be mad at it overall, and I quite like the plot in this. I think like the big bad of this series is very interesting. Like Julia Kagawa is so good at that. Like I mean, these like not really necessarily like villains, but like problems that need to be solved, or like, well, big bads eventually does come out to that like at the surface level like seem very simple, but like if you go into like what that stands for and like what it does to people, it's just like, oh shit, like this is very interesting commentary, and I really love it. It's done in this one as well, and yeah, I just had a lot of fun with it. I really loved this. The only problem I really kind of had with it was the insta-love, which is a thing that I've noticed Julia Kagawa do a lot in this world. Like every single series has insta-love in it, like very badly, and this one also had that, and it got me. This is the one that I've been the most angry about, because I do think Buck and his love interest have a very interesting dynamic, and they play off each other very well, and I just feel like if we got like proper development, it would have been like such a great romance, but we didn't get that, so now I'm just upset. Let's move on to the next book, which is Two Can Keep a Secret by Katharine McManus, which I give 4 out of 5 stars to. This book follows Eloise, who moves to this little town with her twin brother. Her own mother like went away from this town when like as soon as she graduated, because her mother's twin sister, so the main character's aunt, was like disappeared in this town. And then 5 years ago, another girl got murdered in this town, and her that girl that was murdered, like her boyfriend's, was the main suspect in this investigation, even though like they never found any like real proof to like get him like to be able to arrest him or anything. But that has weighed like a lot of problems on this guy's family, and also on this guy's brother named Malcolm, who's the other character we follow in this. And basically Ellery and her twin brother moved to this town, and a little while after that the town starts receiving threats again that this homecoming something is gonna go bad again, just like 5 years ago. And like Malcolm again is one that is very much on the suspect list, but Ellery, who is a true crime lover, like is like, I'm gonna delve deep into this and try and figure this out. And that was the worst explanation I've ever given about a book. But I hope that kind of made sense, because there are so many like little aspects in this book that all like tied together, and it's like hard to explain it all. It's not hard to follow, don't worry, but it is a bit hard to explain how all of it fits together. But earlier this month, I read The Cousins by Katharine McManus, which is in a mid-month wrap-up, so go check out my thoughts on that if you want. And I really loved that, so I wanted to read another book by her, and I had this one from the library because I couldn't choose between the two, so I thought I'd just take both of them out. I really like this book. I do prefer The Cousins over this one, but I thought that this was great as well. This was more like genuinely like a murder mystery and like a disappearance mystery, and they're trying to figure out what happened to these two new girls so that they can kind of prevent something new happening. And there's also still like a lot of the time the question of, are these two things actually connected, because like there was so much time between the two, even though like it seems very similar, it's like different, so like they don't know if they're connected. And even now with these new threats, they're like, is this like actually the same person who killed this other girl like 5 years ago? Is this like a copycat? There's like a lot of questions around that. And I really liked how our main characters, together with like Ellie's twin brother and like Malcolm's best friend, like the four of them kind of end up like trying to like investigate this and what's going on. There's like a lot of secret going on in the small town, you know, obvious small town stuff. And eventually I was nervous that this was gonna like wrap up in a way that I wasn't gonna like, because there's so much was going on and like so many things were going on in my head. But I do eventually like the way it wrapped up. It kind of felt like it kind of came out of nowhere, but like also at the same time, like once the reveal is made, like you start seeing all these things that were mentioned before, and we're like, oh shit. And I feel like Katharine McManus is really good at doing that, because at the same thing with The Cousins, where at first when you like made the big reveal, I was like, wait, how did we get here? But then you start thinking about it and start thinking about like little clues how it left, and you're like, oh no, I just completely missed everything. And this book also had that, and I really liked that. Then the next book I read is Katharine Parr, The Sixth Wife by Alison Weir, which is a gal I got from Bengali, and I give 2 out of 5 stars to. This is a historical fiction novel about Katharine Parr, the sixth wife of Henry VIII. It basically follows like almost her entire life, like from her childhood to her death. And then there are some like time skips in there to like more relevant stuff. And I kind of had a mixed experience with this book, which is definitely like I liked the first bit, which was Catherine's childhood. I think that was very interesting, where she was like raised like with a little bit of like the expectations that were put on women at the time. Like she was still like taught how to like keep a house and stuff like that, but she was also taught a bit more liberally. Like she was taught to read and like sciencey stuff and math and stuff. Like she was taught like the same things as her brother was as well in like those areas, and like a bit more freely than most people would. And I really liked seeing that. And then also as she grew older, and her, because she lived with a lot of her family members, seeing those family members who are older than her like getting married off, and she being like, oh no, like my childhood is over, like I'm, you know, it's like slowly like being pressured to like get more mature, I guess, like having a change. I thought that was like such an interesting storyline, and I really like that. And then she got married to her first husband, and it got boring real quick, because I feel like a lot of interesting things were happening in this period of time between like the first guy she married and her marrying Henry VIII. Like a lot of interesting shit was going on in the country that is mentioned, but we see Katharine Parr just like react to these things. Like was playing like a very passive role in this story, and it was just so boring, and I don't like it. But then she got married to Henry VIII, and then we got like in the second half of the story, and she's so much more active and everything. Like when she got married to Henry VIII, she is more like kind of involved with everything, and like not really but like in a way she is. And I don't know, seeing her just play more of an active role in a book about her life, that was great. The next book I read is Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid, which is another Gallagher from Bengali, and I give 2 out of 5 stars, and like most people definitely was disappointed in this book. So this book follows the 4 Riva siblings. They're all pretty well, 3 of them are really famous, 4 of them is like very well known in association to these 3 siblings, but their father is like a very famous singer, and like they all got their career of their own as well. And mainly they're known to throw this party every single year at the end of summer, like the siblings. And it's always like this wild thing where a bunch of celebrities are invited and like a bunch of regular people as well. And like wild shit happens, you know? And this book starts like the morning before the party, so like the leading up to the party, and like a little bit, not really that much of the after effects, but just like a little bit, like the 24 hours surrounding the party, let me just say it that way. So this book is about, that was, again, shit explanation, but the explanation of like the official synopsis of the book is pretty vague. But in the first half, we kind of get the like morning, I guess, before it, like the preparation before the party, and we get to see like who these characters are, what they're doing, how they're known. But we also are getting flashbacks to like, I believe it starts somewhere in the 50s and leads up to the like, present day, which is the 80s, and it follows like the love story of their parents, and the parents like breaking up, like getting divorced, and like the tumultuous relationship between the 2 parents, and like the tumultuous childhood that these kids had, and basically it leads up to like present day, I guess. Like really like how they got famous, more like that's more what it is, because there is still a couple of years difference between that. And honestly, that just it got boring real quick for me, that part, because I feel like in the present day storyline, which was the 80s, not a lot was happening like at all. And then I feel like the flashback parts could have been condensed in like a paragraph or 2, and like some things like casually mentioned throughout the plot, because I just feel like, yes, there were things in there that were kind of relevant to know how certain characters are acting and reacting to certain stuff, but eventually like there was just like way too much there. I didn't need to know that much, so it got a bit boring. And then we got into the second half, and I saw no more flashbacks, and I was like, yes. This is gonna be great. Thanks. Finally gonna be able to focus on these characters, because I feel like the only one of the Riva siblings that I really know is Nina. Like they all have their stuff going on, and I understand the stuff that is like currently going on, like the drama that they're currently facing, but I don't have like a grasp on the character except Nina. Nina was fantastic. I love Nina. But then in the second half, when we're like in the party, we get so many different perspectives that just, I again started to like be bored a little bit, because I don't need to know what this random celebrity is doing at this party and like why they're doing it, like the live events leading up to this. I don't fucking care. Like, give me more about these Riva siblings who are supposedly like the main characters of this novel. But we didn't get that. I was so frustrated. Let's just move on from it to a book that was also highly anticipated, but I wasn't disappointed by. One Last Stop by Casey McQuiston, which I gave 5 out of 5 stars. I love this. This book follows August, who her entire life she's never felt like she really belonged anywhere, and she's gone from place to place, and now she has transferred from her college to New York, and she's moving into New York, and she is moving into this apartment with these people she doesn't know, and she's started this job, and she's finally kind of feeling like a sense of belonging somewhere, and that eventually gets even more like affirmed, I guess, well, she meets Jane on the subway. Jane is a girl who has been stuck on the subway since the 80s. Like, no, the 70s. I don't even remember. Yeah, the 70s. So was from the 70s, and something happened and she got like kind of stuck in time and she can't leave this metro. And yeah, it's a problem. But there's also a romance between August and Jane, and they try to figure out what got Jane stuck there. Is also kind of a little bit of a self-discovery journey for August as well, with a lot of things happening, and there's some more things going on. But I absolutely adored this. I thought August was an amazing main character. I really love the side characters. It was so vibrant. They jumped to the page. Like, I loved them. I had a great time reading this book. I laughed out loud so many times. I feel like the perfect way to describe this book is vibrant, but I don't know if that makes sense to anyone else besides me, but I feel like everything just was so crystal clear in my brain and just felt so real and so lively, and I loved that. I also really liked Jane as a character. Like, she, like, in the beginning of this novel, she doesn't know that this is what's going on with her, and while talking to August, like, she like figures out like something's not right here, and she figures out what's going on. Like, she's stuck in time and she can't leave the subway, but she's also like throughout this book like slowly recovers her memories of her time in the 70s, like of her life basically. So that's such an interesting journey to go on with her. And I like how August kind of assisted in that. I love their romance. It was so good. There was so many great moments of like just like perfect tension between the two, and I adored it. But I also like a lot of cute moments, and I loved it so much. And yeah, the second to last book, I'm sorry, I've been talking for a long time. Second to last book I read this month is Project Hail Mary by Elle Weir, which is another guy I got from that guy. I gave 5 stars. This book follows Ryland Grace as he is on a spaceship on a suicide mission to save Earth. The only problem is he remembers absolutely nothing, like not even his own name. And more I won't tell you about the synopsis because I feel like figuring everything out together with Ryland is so much fun, and part of why I love this story so much, which I wasn't expecting because I typically don't like amnesia stories, but I feel like in this case it really enhanced my reading experience. I liked, maybe it's also kind of like the isolation of Ryland being like the only person in this ship and like having no outside influences, and therefore like having no memory and like having to figure everything out on your own. It's like, I don't know, I feel like it's high stakes and it's interesting, and I liked it, and I loved figuring everything out together with him. Like, we didn't know anything more than he did, and I like that. And I really liked also how grounded this book felt, because like a lot is going on. It's a sci-fi, a lot of things that are hard to imagine are going on, but just like in The Martian, there's a lot of science in this book, which is like real science, maybe like kind of applied in an unrealistic way, like to things that don't exist, but like it's science. And I liked it, just even though like I couldn't always completely understand like the things that were going on like science wise, I do feel like it eventually, like having that much like science in it to try and explain everything, made everything just like feel very realistic and very grounded, and I really liked that. I also really liked Ryland as a main character. I thought I laughed out loud a couple of times throughout this book. I thought it was very funny, and yeah, I really loved this. But then finally, the last book, I finished this literally yesterday because I tried to binge it because I wanted to have like one more book finished before the end of the month, and that's The Deal by Elle Kennedy, which I gave 2 5 stars. This book follows Hannah, who, okay, I have to start with Hannah's part, but like it doesn't really make much sense until you get like to the other main character's part. But Hannah has like this philosophy or like ethics class. I don't really know what it is because they reference both words at the time, so I don't really know, but I'm calling it a philosophy class. And recently, like, this philosophy class has had a teacher switch, and the previous teacher was known to have like very easy passable tests, but like this new teacher is like very difficult to pass. And they just, at the beginning of this book, they got their exams back, and Hannah is one of the like very few people in this class who passed. And then we also follow Garrett, who is an ice hockey player, but like at the school, like if you want to be on the team, you have to have like an average, you know, that's good. And he has had pretty good grades, but now he has failed all his exams. His average is like right under what it needs to be. So you know, he doesn't want to do that, and luckily the teacher the teacher is offering a like retake because so much of the class failed. So he's like, yeah, I'm gonna do this, and I desperately need to pass this because I want to keep playing, because ice hockey is like his favorite thing in the world. And then he sees that Hannah has such a high score on his exam, and he's like, hey, you're gonna tutor me. And she's like, no. But then he notices that she has this crush on this boy, and he's like, you know what, if you tutor me, I'll fake date you so he'll be more interested in you. So that's the plan. And I really like this. I also learned that it is fake dating, which I adore. It also involves a deal. Obviously, like, they make a deal. You'll tutor me, I'll help you out, like, to get this guy. Love deals as well. And also, it has a little bit of friends and benefits action, which I recently learned is a trope I love. So I was just like, yes, I need to read this book. And I was right, like, those aspects were like really good. I really loved most of this book. Well, it's like I wouldn't have 4-star because I did have some problems with it, because I feel like Garrett is very much like a guy who like sees a girl and is like immediately like thinking about all the way like he could have sex with them, which was sometimes a little bit annoying while being in his perspective, but like it did get less throughout the book, which I enjoyed. And then there's also just like, this was published in 2015, I believe, so it is kind of a bit of a time where it has a bit more of that misogyny in it, and internalized misogyny, and like hypermasculinity, and like a little bit of toxic masculinity, and I don't know, that was sometimes just like a little bit too much for me, but eventually like it wasn't that prevalent that I like completely didn't like this anymore. So, you know, yeah, this was just some minor gripes with it that I had. But then the last 100 or so pages, I couldn't care less. I feel like I didn't really care for what's going on in those pages, and it was hard to get my attention to those pages. And then like the third act conflicts gets thrown in, and I was just like, no, this is so stupid, like, just talk to each other. Like, they didn't, and like eventually they did end up talking to each other, and like one of them is like, you know, if you just told me this from the beginning, like nothing would have happened. And it's like, yes, exactly. Exactly, you have the self-awareness and communication is what could have prevented all of this. Yet it didn't happen, and it was so annoying. So yeah, that's why I eventually landed on the 3-star, even though I was liking most of the book, is because those last 100 pages were just like too much for me. But the romance was great in it. I really loved the dynamics the two main characters had with each other, like just kind of like the banter and like the attraction and stuff. I thought it was very well done. And yeah, I also just kind of wish these side characters were a little bit more developed, if I'm being honest, especially because like Garrett's friends are going to get like their own, like have their own books. Those the next couple of books in the series like follow them and like their romances. So I feel like I read the first 2 Bridgerton books also earlier in the month, and like what immediately wanted me to move on to like the next book is that I really loved like the rest of the Bridgerton family that we got to see, and I was like, oh my god, I want to know their stories. And I didn't really have that with this book because I didn't really feel like I really knew the other guys. Those are my thoughts on that book, and all the books are in July. We're finished with this wrap up. I've been talking about a very long time. Honestly, I've been filming for 40 minutes. I'm hoping I can cut this down to like a normal length. So yeah, that was it for today. Let me know in the comments below what you thought of these books, if you've read them, so some of the books you read in July, and I guess I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.